You know, the people who go from underdog to multi-millionaire, they show us one thing. You don't need to know anything about money to become rich and successful. They didn't know anything. They started with nothing. And look at them now. The foundation of riches and success is built on strong life lessons. Each of the people on today's list, they learned one lesson early on in their lives and they used it to push themselves beyond their limits. And those lessons are useful for you too. They'll change the way you see yourself and your ambitions. So let's jump in. Number 1, Tony Robbins. Raise your standards, then believe that you deserve those standards. Even if you've never read any of his books or been to any of his seminars, you probably have heard of Tony Robbins, right? He's a powerhouse in personal development, and it's because he struggled with the very things he teaches other people about. His mother struggled with addiction, his father wasn't around, and his family was constantly moving, barely eating, and living on help from other people. He dove into personal development, learning everything he could about growth and motivation through mentors like Jim Rohn. And he didn't just read the books, he took action. He applied those old lessons to his life. He learned new lessons for his future life, and then he hit the ground selling tickets to his seminars. He learned how to speak to people, connect with them, and get his messages across. And all of this was only possible because he set high standards for himself, and he innately believed he deserved those standards. You have to believe that you deserve success, because you do. Number 2, Andrew Carnegie. Spend a third of your life getting all the education you can, the next third making all the money you can, and the last third giving it all away. Now, Andrew Carnegie went from being a poor immigrant to one of the richest men in the world, but his journey was not easy. He was born in Scotland in 1835, but his family moved to America when Andrew was 13. It was tough, and they struggled to make ends meet. So at 13 years old, Andrew had to take a job as a bobbin boy at a cotton mill. Now, at the cotton mill, he climbed the ladder by learning everything he could about the business. He spent hours reading books and gaining as much knowledge as he could. By the time he was in his 30s, Carnegie had moved into steel manufacturing, amassing a fortune worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But Andrew didn't just focus on making money. He believed in using his wealth to improve society. So when he was older, he dedicated himself to philanthropy. He's known to have donated over $350 million to different causes. So Alexa, remember, each stage of your life needs a driving focus, one that fulfills you. Humans love to learn, we love to grow, and we love to give back. Those things truly make us feel great. Number 3, George Soros. When you have conviction and the timing is right, don't just bet hard. Now, George Soros is often a controversial figure on the lists of inspiring people. He's criticized a lot for his investing strategies and his politics. But you can't deny his resilience and success. Heck, in 1992, he made $1 billion in a single day by betting against the British pound. An achievement like that is worth paying attention to. And when he bets, he does bet hard. And he had to learn to do that pretty early on. Soros grew up in Hungary during World War II. His early life was not easy, and he saw firsthand how quickly the world can change. His big break came in 1992 when he recognized an opportunity to short the British pound. His conviction was strong and he trusted his instincts. He didn't just dip his toes into the market, he went all in betting big. And that decision made him billions. Soros' story shows us that if you want to be successful, you can't afford to play it safe. You have to be bold and be confident. Number 4, Shonda Rhimes. You have to always say yes to hard work. Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, and How to Get Away with Murder are some of the biggest shows of the last 2 decades, and there's one woman behind all of them, Shonda Rhimes. But she's known for more than just her screenwriting talents. She's considered by many hardworking people in Hollywood to be the hardest working of them all. It's her work ethic that pulled her out of a life of poverty. Rhimes didn't get to where she is by luck, okay? She put in the hours, the sweat, and relentless drive that a lot of people just aren't willing to do. Her scripts were rejected countless times, and each time she took that feedback and went back to the drawing board. We always hear about how important it is to get back up and try again, but what does that actually mean? How do you do it? What's the difference between those who rise and those who fall? Well, in today's daily session on the Alux app, we're talking about exactly that. And if you would like to join us in that conversation, well, we've got an awesome offer for you. Download the Alux app, scan this QR code on screen, and you'll get 25% off the annual membership. And I'll be right there with you every single day guiding you. We'll see you on the inside. But as we were saying about Shonda, talent alone is not enough to make you successful if that's what you want. If you really want it, you have to see hard work as an adventure, something exciting that you want to say yes to because, well, that's the only way you're going to get to the top. Number 5, Walt Disney. You don't have to be good at your idea to pursue it. Now, the Walt Disney Company is a $200 billion entertainment empire that dominates everything from movies to theme parks to streaming services and merchandise. It wasn't always that way, though. Walt Disney, the man, grew up in a family that was constantly moving around and could barely afford enough money for food. They definitely didn't have the money for toys, so art was a form of escape for Walt. But he wasn't that good at it, so he hired talented artists and focused on what he did best, dreaming up ideas and finding innovative ways to bring them to life. You don't have to be technically perfect at something to revolutionize it, no. You just need to believe in your vision enough to find people who can help you make it real. You need the courage to pursue your ideas, even when you're not that good at them yet. Number 6, Tyler Perry. Super serve your people and ignore anyone who isn't one of them. Now, Tyler Perry Studios is a 330-acre entertainment complex worth over $1 billion, and his movies have made over $2 billion in box office revenue. But despite that success, his movies come under a lot of scrutiny because they cater to a very specific group of people, and often those people are generalized and stereotyped in his movies. But Tyler has stuck to his guns with his target audience. To him, he doesn't need to pay attention to anyone who isn't a fan, and neither do you. When he started putting on shows in small community theaters, critics called his work simplistic and dismissed his characters as stereotypes. But that didn't stop him. His productions weren't technically sophisticated, but that didn't matter because his work resonated with his audience. You don't have to appeal to everyone to build something massive. If you can super serve the people who do support you, well, their loyalty will be louder than those critical voices. Number 7, Ralph Lauren. Be ambitious, but not desperate. Now, Ralph Lauren built one of the most recognizable fashion brands in the world. His name is now a symbol of luxury, but when he started out, he was just another unknown designer trying to break into the industry. In the late 1960s, Lauren introduced a new take on ties. They were big, wide, colorful designs that stood out from the slim, conservative ties that dominated the market. Bloomingdale's, the biggest name in department stores at the time, wanted to buy his entire collection. It was the kind of deal that most new designers would kill for, but there was a catch. Bloomingdale's would only carry them if he agreed to remove his label and let them sell the ties under their name. He said no. He was a nobody in fashion back then, turning down one of the most powerful retailers in New York. But Lauren wasn't in it for a quick check. He was building a brand for himself. If you go into business desperate, you'll take whatever you can get. And that's how you lose control over your future. Number 8. Louis Vuitton. Never be afraid of working odd jobs. Now, Louis Vuitton is a name that defines luxury, right? His brand is worn by the rich, carried by celebrities, and recognized worldwide as a symbol of wealth. But before all of that, he was just a teenager with no money, no connections, and no place to stay. At 13 years old, he left home and set out for Paris. He had no plan, just the determination to build a better life. Along the way, he took whatever work he could find. He worked with stone, fabric, metal, and wood, but none of these jobs paid enough to meet his needs. Some nights, he slept in the woods. But every skill he picked up became useful later on when he started crafting trunks and luggage. Most people wanted to skip the struggle. But if you're trying to build a business, don't be too proud to take on small jobs. Don't fall for that lie that real success happens overnight, okay? It doesn't. Handle your survival first, then you can build your empire. Number 9, Barbara Corcoran. You have to declare war on your insecurities. Now, Barbara Corcoran turned a $1,000 loan into a $5 billion real estate empire. She built one of the most successful businesses in New York and has been a key investor on Shark Tank for years. But even after all of that, she still hears the voice that tells her she's not good enough. She called it her greatest enemy and her greatest advantage. Now, she's admitted that her success isn't because she's the smartest or most talented, it's because she used her insecurity as fuel. She had to fight against the belief that she wasn't meant to succeed. She wasn't born into wealth, she struggled in school. And at 30 years old, she realized something. She could either let those insecurities define her life, or she could use them as the reason to push forward. So, she declared war on them. Everyone has that voice telling them they're not good enough. The only way to get rid of that voice is to fight it off. Number 10, Jim Carrey. Your life is shaped by your decisions, and your decisions are driven by either love or fear. Now, Jim Carrey is wealthy, successful, and well-loved. He's the funny man, right? But behind all of that is someone who really has struggled growing up and who's dealt with a lot of challenges, even as a successful adult. He's had all the opportunities to learn about himself and the world, but he says that his biggest lesson came from his father. His father was a talented musician, but he gave up his dream for a safe job as an accountant. He made that choice out of fear. Fear of instability, fear of failure, fear of chasing something uncertain, and yet despite playing it safe, he still lost his job. That moment changed everything for Carrey. He realized that if failure was possible no matter what you chose, you might as well take a chance on what you actually love. That lesson shaped his entire career. He took risks other people wouldn't. He wrote himself a $10 million check for acting services rendered years before he had any money, and then he went out and made it real. He refused to let fear dictate his choices. Every decision you make comes down to two forces, love or fear. Most people let fear win, okay? They play it safe, they settle and hope things work out. But Carrey's story proves that fear doesn't protect you from failure. It just stops you from ever trying. Number 11, Amancio Ortega. You don't have to be the life of the party to be successful. Now, Amancio Ortega built Zara into one of the biggest fashion brands in the world, but most people wouldn't recognize him if he was walking down the street. He avoids interviews, rarely speaks to the press, and doesn't care for the spotlight. Unlike most billionaires, he has no interest in being a public figure, and yet he built an empire worth over $74 billion. There's a myth that success belongs to extroverts, the ones who dominate conversations, make the right connections, and know how to work a room. But Ortega has shown us that it doesn't have to be that way at all. He built his success not by being loud, but by being sharp. He paid attention, made strategic decisions, and focused on execution over exposure. Not everyone needs to be the center of attention to win. If you're more of an observer than a talker, use that to your advantage, okay? Let your work speak louder than your words. Number 12, David Geffen. Share uncomfortably personal details in order to gain others' trust. Now, David Geffen built a billion-dollar empire in music and entertainment. He co-founded DreamWorks, launched the careers of legends like Elton John and Nirvana, and became one of the most powerful figures in Hollywood. But power and influence weren't the only things that defined him. He understood something deeper about human connection. Now, Geffen built his career as a gay man at a time when being openly gay could literally cost you everything, even your life. Publicly, he kept his personal life quiet, but behind closed doors, he often shared his truth with people he trusted. It wasn't just small talk, it was a sign of vulnerability, a way to build deeper connections in an industry full of surface-level relationships. His honesty made some people uncomfortable, but that's exactly why it worked. In business, people expect competition, strategy, and ambition. What they don't expect is real openness and vulnerability. Influence isn't just built through deals and negotiations, no. It's built through honesty, even when it feels risky. Number 13, Michael Jordan. You have to turn adversity into fuel. Now, Michael Jordan isn't just one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He's one of the greatest competitors in history, period. 6 NBA championships, 5 MVP awards, and a legacy that still dominates the sport decades after he retired. None of that would have happened if he hadn't learned how to turn setbacks into fuel. Jordan's career is built on rejection. In high school, he was cut from the varsity basketball team. Instead of sulking, he trained harder than ever. He used that disappointment as motivation. That same fire followed him all the way to the NBA. Every loss, every criticism, every moment of doubt, he took it personally and used it to push himself further. When people said he couldn't play defense, he became the league's best defender. When they said he was just a scorer, he turned into a leader who made his entire team better. When he stepped away from basketball and struggled in baseball, he came back and won 3 more championships. Most people let adversity break them. Jordan let it sharpen him. The difference between winners and everyone else isn't just talent. It's what they do when things don't go their way. Number 14, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Listen to the people who believe in you. Now, Dwayne Johnson is one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood, a global icon and a brand unto himself. And yet, when he was a teenager, he was angry, violent, and heading down the wrong path, arrested multiple times for fighting, stealing, and forging checks. That could have been his entire life story, but one person changed his trajectory: his high school football coach, Jody Quick. Now, he pulled Johnson aside and saw potential where others saw a lost cause. The coach encouraged Dwayne to join the team and keep his grades up so he could keep playing. Football gave him direction, but it was his coach's belief in him that gave him fuel. Even if just one person believes in you, find out why. Make an effort to understand what they see. We see our flaws so easily, right? But struggle to see our talents. But all it takes is one good person to show you. And when they do, listen to them. And number 15, Stella Liebeck. Don't just back down because they're bigger and richer than you. Okay, this one's very different to anybody else on our list, but it's an important lesson in not backing down even when you're fighting a giant and the world thinks you're a joke. Stella Liebeck was ridiculed as the woman who sued McDonald's over hot coffee. Now, some of you might remember this story. It was all over the news, and Stella was depicted as this old, dramatic lady looking for a quick buck. But really, McDonald's coffee was 190 degrees Fahrenheit, way hotter than any coffee should be. It caused third-degree burns all over Stella's lower body, and she needed skin grafts. She wasn't even seeking millions of dollars, she just asked McDonald's to cover her medical bills. They offered her $800, an absolute insult, and that is when she sued. The trial revealed McDonald's had ignored over 700 previous burn complaints. The jury awarded her $2.7 million in damages, which forced corporations to take customer safety more seriously. Liebeck might have become a joke in the media, but she didn't back down. If you're in the right, don't let money or power intimidate you. Fight back. And that's all we got for you today, my friend. Don't forget to download the app to listen to today's daily session, which takes a more philosophical and psychological dive into today's topic. We're discussing the difference between those who rise and those who fall. Here's that QR code again for 25% off the annual membership. We'll see you on the inside.